Here with y'all in Twinkle City. Excited to see all of y'all and excited to be able to share an update with y'all about the things, not that I have been doing, not even that we have been doing, but rather the things that the Lord has been doing with us. And of course, when we talk about mission work, the quintessential missionary is the Apostle Paul. And Paul finds himself in Macedonia. He spent several weeks in the city of Thessalonica evangelizing. He planted a young congregation there. And after a short time there, ended up having to leave for the sake of those new converts because of the persecution that was there. But he wrote back to them a couple of letters in rapid succession. And as he does this, he reminds them of the way that he behaved while he was there. And so there in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 7, he reminds them that while I was among you, that I did not behave disorderly. That is, I did not walk out of step with the gospel, but rather I practiced what I preached, and my life was consistent with my teaching. And he goes on there in verse 8, and he says, and we didn't eat any man's bread for nothing, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any of you. And the idea here is that he worked hard. He burned the candlestick at both ends. And that word labor carries the idea of the physical work that he was doing. But the travail, that's the idea of his worry, his care, and his concern for the church there. And because he cared, because he was worried about them, that drove him to work. And he points out it's not that we didn't have authority, quite the opposite. In his epistles to the Corinthians, he's going to talk about that it's good and it's right that a preacher should live of the gospel. But rather, he didn't want to be a burden to them. And what an important idea that is, that as we reach out to the lost, we don't want to be a burden to them, but rather we want to be a help and an encouragement to them. So Paul said, that's why I worked so hard while I was there. And not only that, but also, he says, to make ourselves an example to you that you should follow, that you should imitate us. So Paul did that so that he could teach those that were there so that they could continue that pattern of working hard to show their care and concern for those that they're reaching out to the gospel, that they would follow that example. At the Manna Project, that's kind of what our goal is. You know, we are self-supporting, and we are sending out preachers trained to be self-supporting. And so that when they go out into these villages and they introduce the gospel to places that it has not been, they're not showing up saying, here, I'm here to save you, give me money. But rather, they're showing their love, their care, and their concern by what they do. And just by way of a quick reminder, y'all know our work, but what the Manna Project is, we're cultivating hope around the world. We're training preachers, training evangelists, training disciples, followers of Christ. We're teaching them agriculture, putting a heavy emphasis on self-sufficiency and sustainability of these works through the preaching schools that we set up, and teaching church growth, how to plant congregations, how to grow them, and how to develop the leaders who can ultimately oversee those. We're teaching agriculture and different vocations that can be used by these men to be self-supporting and to help those around them. And it's been amazing to see what the Lord has done. We've been able to track some 3,000 baptisms, 200 congregations established, and as of last month, 274 preachers trained and sent out into the field. And several of those are working now to establish new congregations. It has been amazing to see what the Lord has done. And so we're training these guys there in their local culture, their local context. We're not teaching them to be Americans. We're just teaching them to be Christians and gospel preachers. And we're placing that heavy emphasis on practical methods of organic farming, intensified agriculture, things that they can do to raise enough food to support their family on a small plot of land. And we're also starting to teach them some other trades as well, sewing and welding and water purification, which is a really big deal. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And also teaching, again, those leaders who ultimately can oversee those congregations, placing the emphasis on evangelism and also benevolence. And again, talking about these Macedonian brethren there at Thessalonica, when Paul writes to Corinth, he said, I want you to know about what's going on in Thessalonica, that in their deep poverty, they're being benevolent. And that's exactly what we're trying to teach these Africans to do, is in their deep poverty, to use what they have, what the Lord has blessed them with, to help those that are around them. And so talk about the places where we're working. Of course, when we're here in the United States, we try to do these things here at home as well. And I'm so encouraged and excited to see others doing those. I know there's a gospel meeting starting in Coleman today, and I hope you all are able to go out and support that meeting. And there was a door knocking there. Have several good friends that were involved in that. And I think the number I saw was something like 24 contacts for Bible study out of that door knocking. So there are those souls around us that are searching, that are wanting to know the truth. And actually, this last month, we didn't get to participate at our home congregation. There was a door knocking because we were on our way home from Africa. But when we got home, we get to do the fun part. We're doing the follow-up and helping with the Bible studies and that kind of stuff. And so we're so excited about that. We've been able to participate in a few short-term mission projects in Latin America and the Caribbean. And then, of course, we have a more established presence in Nepal and also East Africa, particularly Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. And we talk about the funds that we receive and where that money goes. We want to be accountable and transparent and be good stewards of those things. And so what we're using those funds for, we're using those to pay the faculty and staff at our schools to deal with buildings and infrastructure, deal with logistics and health care and emergency needs. And when I talk about health care, our health care system here is not like totally awesome, but it's so much better than they have in Africa. And one of the things there is, you have an emergency, that's fine, we'll help you after we see money. And so to have that cash on hand, to be able to help them when they have an emergency. It was earlier this year that one of our farm workers encountered a spitting cobra amongst our chickens. And that cobra spit in his eyes. And so we're able to get him to the medical care quickly, get him the treatment that he needed. He's okay. He has his eyesight. He's doing okay. He also decided he didn't really want to work on our farm anymore. I don't blame him for that. But we're glad that we're able to help him in that way. And then, of course, we use those funds for international travel, educational material and resources, supplies. One thing that I'm super excited about that I'm just kind of starting to deal with is artificial intelligence. You know, getting stuff translated into those local languages is difficult and expensive and slow. And just to kind of a trial run, I took one of the smaller books that we're using in our preaching schools, and I fed that to ChatGPT. I said, I want this in a Word document in Tanzanian Swahili. 30 seconds later, here it comes back. So I sent that to our brethren there. I said, I want you to go through this, carefully proofread it, let me know. They said it's very clean. There's some small grammatical things, but nothing big. Didn't change the doctrine at all. So I'm really excited about the potential to be able to use that to get some materials more quickly into their hands. Now here's one of the things that we're not doing with that money. Number one, it's not going to my dinner table. I'm able to be self-supporting with the work that I do, and I'm thankful that I can partner with you in that way so that all those funds go to Africa and go to work in the field. And the other thing we're not doing with that is we're not paying our students a big salary. And that's a big deal because there's a lot of our preaching schools that do exactly that. And they pay pretty well. Consequently, I personally know of some guys that have been to preaching school 3 and 4 times because they get paid good while they're there. But our students, we're training them to be self-supporting when they go out. That training starts when they come in. We provide them a place to sleep. We provide their food. We provide their medical care. If they want money for a cell phone, here's a hoe. Pull it out of the ground. And so we start that from the very beginning. And again, it's because of that travail, that care, and that concern that we're wanting to put in that hard work, and that we're teaching these guys to follow that example, to also put in that hard work, because when they go out, that's going to be what they're going to have to depend on is themselves to be able to help these villages that they're reaching out to. And so when I talk about the places that we've been, talk briefly about Uganda. Now, last year when I was here, I mentioned about the rebels there in Uganda and a promise that I made to my wife that I wouldn't go back until it was safe. This summer, Qatar stepped in and negotiated a peace treaty between the government and the rebels, and that lasted about 2 weeks. And they're back at it again. Greg went last month to Uganda. I'm happy that he went. I was not comfortable going. But thankfully he was safe. We had a graduation there. We have 16 students who graduated, and those 16 students are going out into the mission field, supporting themselves, working with new villages and congregations, really excited about the things that we're seeing there and just the fertile fields that we're dealing with. And so during graduation week, Sunday morning, after Bible class, the brethren had to stop what they were doing and go down to the river because there were 2 visitors there who realized, I need to be baptized and have my sins washed away, and I can't wait another hour to do that. We need to do it now. So they stopped what they were doing, went down to the river, baptized 2 new souls into Christ, and then they came back and worshiped together. What a wonderful thing. And then, of course, the emphasis, again, there is on teaching these guys to be self-supporting. One of the things we love doing is when we have the opportunities to go out to these villages, into their farms, and see what they're doing and talk about ways that it can be improved. And so here's one place that we went where, and this is very common, that their farmland is the steep slope of a mountainside. And so they'll hoe the whole thing up and plant their crops, and then when the rains come, all their crops wash down the hill, and they're amazed every time. And so we go and talk about, let's talk about moisture control. Let's talk about soil control and erosion. Let's do some terracing. Let's put down some mulch. Let's deal with this water so that your crops stay put. And those little things can make a huge difference in the quality of life for these people. And again, with that focus on being self-supporting, one of the things that we're working right now with Tom, the director of our school there in Uganda, is as these 16 students have gone out, we've got another intake that's coming in. We're going to begin with that budget at 50% of what it has been. And so Tom's working out that plan right now. And then we're setting the goal, and he's working out the plan so that over the course of the 2 years while those students are there, that budget will get to 0. And that's going to take some hard work. That's going to take that labor night and day, but it's because of the care and concern that it's worth it to set that example. And ultimately, and while we're dealing with that, we're also looking around in the local congregation, some of the men that we've trained, some of these that have gone out to see where we can appoint elders. And ultimately the goal is to have some local elders who can oversee these things. Moving now across Lake Victoria to Kenya. This is our newest work. Super excited about the things going on there at the school in Kenya. And sometimes it's the small things. I've mentioned the amazing African diet of rice and beans. Nothing but rice and beans all the time. And so here, the last time we were there, Leah spent some time with one of the ladies teaching her how to make cinnamon rolls. Such a simple thing that can make a hard life just a little bit better. And really impressed with the work that's going on there in the village of Wangara. One of the things, Paul, who's the director of our school, his speciality is in water management, water catchment, water filtration, all of those things. And so here's the school garden. As he got those young plants started, he's using drip irrigation from rainwater that's been captured to get those plants started. And then as they grow, going back with those heavy layers of mulch to control the moisture through the dry season. And what a big difference that makes when there's nothing growing and nobody has anything. When you've got vegetables and you've got greens to eat, that makes a radical difference. And again, some of the other trades that we're starting to teach, here's our students there. They learned how to mix the cement and make the blocks, then how to build something with it. So when they go out to the village, they can build their house. They can build a church building. They can help people in their village in that way. And again, talking about that drinking water. So 2 very common diseases over in this area are cholera and typhoid fever. Cholera comes from unsafe drinking water. Typhoid fever comes from unsafe food handling practices, namely unwashed hands. And so one of the things that Paul and the brethren there have been doing with great success is they'll go into a village and start with that. And so here he is. He went into a school and taught these school children about the importance of hand washing, how to wash their hands with water and soap. And what a difference that can make. And when you deal with these diseases that are so common and yet so devastating, but also so easily preventable, you raise the quality of life, you make a big difference in that village, and now you've opened hearts and you've opened doors to the gospel of Christ. And again, talking about that water, I mentioned this last time, we do provide unlimited, clean, safe drinking water to our neighbors there at Wangara. Anybody who wants it can come and get as much as they want, but if they're going to get it, they're going to talk to a Christian, because we want to share with them the water of life, not just water to drink, something that will last them through eternity. And again, talking about those door knockings that have been going on here, we do door knocking over there as well. And so this particular door knocking campaign, we went out in 5 groups, knocked doors for 3 hours, knocked on 10 doors, every one of them open. We went in, sat down, had a Bible study, ended up with 11 contacts, because one of those had company. And the guest said, "Can you come study with me as well?" And of course, all of that ends up with souls being won to Christ. And that's what it's about, right? Is reaching souls with the gospel, making that eternal impact on them. And so there at the school at Wangara, we have 6 students who are currently studying there, and it has been such a joy to get to know them, see them learn, see them grow, and see their motivation. And Lord willing, when we're there in January, these 6 men are going to be graduating and going out and planting new congregations. And one of the things I'm super excited about this school there at Wangara, as we're nearing this graduation, getting ready for the next intake, the total budget for that school is $0. And the total budget for these guys that are trained and going out is the same. And again, that means working night and day, putting in that hard work, but it's because of our care and concern. And by the way, that's something that we ought to be doing here, right? We ought to sow labor is not to be a burden, but to be a help and be an encouragement to those around us, and to set that example that others can follow. And one trip that we made this year that was a little bit out of the ordinary, we went to Istanbul. And the reason why we went there is this wonderful family here. We've got Sanger and his wife Anna and their young son Sia. And they are Christians. They are baby Christians. There's so much that they don't know that they don't know. And they live in Iraq. We didn't really want to go to Iraq, so we went to Istanbul. We met them there. And while we were there with them, we rented an Airbnb, and we spent a week there with them, studying the Bible with them, teaching them the faith, grounding them in the New Testament. And that's where we spent the lion's share of our time, is around that table right there. And again, this is the place where they live is a place where, if the persecution doesn't come from the officials, it will absolutely come from your friends and neighbors. But we sent them home with all of the resources and the knowledge and the encouragement to begin working on starting a house church there in their home in Iraq. And we're continuing to stay in touch with them and study with them and encourage them. And mind you, again, it is a dangerous situation, and there are times when they get spooked because of this or that, and they'll go silent for a little while. And then once that's passed, they'll pop up again. We continue working with them. But what a blessing to be able to be a part of that, to help them and encourage them in a place that we can't go just now. And while we were there in Istanbul, again, one of the things, as we've had different plane changes and layovers, we've spent time there in Istanbul, about a half dozen different times, and I have searched, I have looked, I have hunted. I can find no evidence of a congregation of the Lord's Church there. City twice the size of New York. And so while we were there, we worshiped together in the home and followed the New Testament pattern of worship, just as they are doing now that they've gone home and are working on starting that house church. And while we were there in Istanbul, we were able to rekindle an old contact, Jeff Puludan. Jeff is a native of Iran. He fled Iran not because he's a Christian, because he's not, but because he wants to be a Christian. And so he's living in Istanbul with his wife and daughter, and he's studying the Bible. And while we were there, we were able to get in contact with him and rekindle that. And so I've been able to restart studies with him. And I'm so excited about that. And again, security is a concern, because even in Istanbul, to be a member of the Church of Christ, that is an illegal religion. So you can't just put a sign out front. You can't put up a website. You can't go around saying, hey, I want to be a Christian. I hear that you're Christians. That's how you end up in jail. And so Jeff is very conscious about these things. On one of our trips, we came into contact with the church in Athens, and there we met a brother by the name of Abraham. Abraham's also a native of Iran. He fled Iran on foot over the mountains to Turkey. He spent some time in Istanbul, and while he was there, he found and knows of a congregation of Iranians that are worshiping according to the New Testament pattern. They're there in Istanbul. They don't have a sign, they don't have a website because they're illegal, but they're there. And so I'm so excited to have that knowledge. And so now I'm working on building that trust and building that bridge with Jeff so that hopefully I can put him in touch with the brethren that are there where he is who speak his language. But again, I haven't gotten his permission to do that yet because he's a little bit security conscious. So we're working prayerfully on building that relationship, building that trust so we can make that contact. But that's one of those things that is amazing to me is the seed principle of the gospel. That wherever you go, if you plant that seed of the Word of God, you're going to get Christians. And again, it's about setting that example for others. Not being a burden, but being a help because of our care. And that means sometimes putting in that hard work on both ends of the clock to do what needs to be done to provide for their needs. Moving back to Africa now, to our school in Tanzania. Really great things going on there in the village of Talawanda. And one of the things that we did while we were there last month is we went and inspected the school garden, as we always do, because when we're there, we teach them all these principles of agriculture. Then we come back and we look and say, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing that, and you need to change how this is being done, and all of those things. And so we went and we inspected the school garden, and we didn't find anything to improve. And by the way, this garden, this is at the end of a 6-month dry season. No rain for 6 months. And the garden looked amazing because they're doing all the things that we've taught them. They're using heavy layers of mulch to keep the moisture in the soil, catching rainwater for drip irrigation. They're propagating from seeds and from cuttings. And they're also harvesting the manure from their animals. And so here's Faustin with that. And he's using that to brew a compost tea and using that as free fertilizer for the garden. And it's amazing. Now we just need to plant 3 times as much land. And actually this week, Maurice sent me some video of them tilling up more soil to expand the garden, to provide more food for the school. And while we were there, after we looked at the garden, we went back to the office. We were sitting there in that school building in the background talking to Maurice about the budget and the plan, because the plan also there at Talawanda. We had a graduation last month. We have a new class coming in. The goal is in 2 years to get that budget to 0 as well. It's going to take some hard work, but these guys are going to do it. And I'm so excited to be able to support them in that. So anyway, while we were talking about that, we saw 3 ladies from the village come, and they were getting food from the garden. And so we're able to not only support and feed the school, but to help our neighbors in that way. And it's all because they're planting those seeds and they're doing the work. And so also Faustin's doing a great job raising chickens. He's got a dozen chicken houses like this one, and he has chickens in various stages of development and raising those for meat and for eggs. And again, there's food vendors and restaurants coming and buying chickens and buying eggs from us and going back out and selling, and also providing some of that as food to the students. And so these things that they're doing are amazing, and this school's well on its way to be self-supporting. So excited about what we see going on there. And talking about that care and concern, the connections that we make are invaluable. And one of the things that Leah did last month was we had a children's seminar. And so we invited kids, of course, from the church. Christian families came, but there are so many in the village from non-Christian households who sent their kids to come. And so there's Leah and a couple of the local ladies that are teaching these kids. We counted 64 kids. Leah said it was organized chaos, sometimes just chaos, but mostly organized. And so we took a page out of the Restoration movement from Walter Scott, taught these kids the 5-finger exercise. So when they go home, they can teach their parents the 5 steps to become a true New Testament Christian and to come and be a part of that. And so excited to be able to take to build those relationships. And again, there in Chilinzi District and in Talawanda where we are, the church is very new, because when we first showed up now, 5 or 6 years ago, the only 2 Christians in town we brought with us. And the church has grown and flourished from there. The church at Talawanda is doing well. There's 3 roads out of town. Doesn't matter which one you take, the next village you come to, there's a congregation. And then the next village after that, as of this month, there's a congregation. And there's some cow trails you can take. And there's a Maasai village out in the bush. And there's a congregation there. But that means that this church is very young. There's a lot of things that we take for granted that they just don't know. And so one thing that was kind of fun that we did is we got some of those VBS songs in Swahili and took it. So we were teaching them, this is the day that the Lord has made, and this little light of mine, some of these they'd never heard before. And so teaching these to our outgoing graduates and some of the faculty there, and to see them latch onto these songs and put their own twist on them and get excited about it so that they can go out into these villages where they're working and teach these to those kids. Really cool. And one of those connections that we've made that's very deep, there's Leah and Helen. Helen is Faustin's wife. Of course, Faustin's our farm manager there at the school doing amazing work. And Helen is going to be working with us at Hope. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But one of those things, as a result of those connections, whenever we come, it's kind of expected that there's going to be a ladies' day. And about half of the ladies that come are not Christians yet, but they're coming and they're learning. And again, it's about setting that example, showing that we're not walking out of step with the gospel, but we practice what we preach because the doctrine matters. And one of the things that is a struggle for us is finding translators. And so this last trip, we failed to find a female translator for Leah for the Ladies' Day. And so she took her notes, all those lessons she prepared, and handed them to me. And with Maurice translating, I taught that Ladies' Day because it matters. And so we showed these ladies we follow God's pattern for the roles of men and women, and we're not going to step outside those boundaries, but we're going to be consistent because the doctrine matters. And so we taught those ladies again about the pattern for the New Testament church and how to become a part of that church, and that it's important to be in the right place, the place where salvation is. And again, there in Talawanda, we had a graduation there as well last month. And one of my favorite things about graduation is the exit interviews. We get to sit down with the students, each one individually, and we quiz them, find out what their Bible knowledge is, their ability to evangelize, and talk about, well, how would you teach this to a Muslim? How would you teach this to a denominationalist? These types of things, and find out how good of a job did we do? Are they ready to go out? And also get to ask them, questions about, what did you love about being at school, and what did you hate about being here? What are some things that we could change to do better for the next group of students? Because we're here for you. That's why we're here. It's not because we're staying at the Hilton, y'all. It's because we love the people. And so that's always exciting, always encouraging. And again, talking about that example and those connections that you make, sometimes it's been so great to see these boys and the connections that they make. Sometimes that means, cutting up and playing a game with the kids. Sometimes that means something a little bit more simple. As we got ready for graduation, we set up a tent to keep everybody out of that hot sun, set it up in the local style, but the wind was very calm, everything was fine. About halfway through graduation, here come the wind. And that tent was getting ready to lay down on top of us. So these two boys jumped up and helped to hold the tent up, and I must say they make very fine posts. So really thankful for that. And we had 8 students who graduated there at Talawanda this year. And again, we placed that heavy emphasis on the Bible and knowing the Bible. And it was great to see the memory work that they've done. And I have it all written down somewhere. But one of the students recited from memory Acts chapter 2. I bet John Paul could do it for you right now. And there was one who recited the book of Obadiah, one who recited the book of Habakkuk, all 3 chapters. And there were some other things as well, totally from memory. And of course, everybody who's there at the graduation is getting that teaching. And so here's these 8 students that we have graduate, 7 men and 1 young lady. Jackie's the one lady. Obviously, she's not going to be a preacher, but it has been amazing to watch her grow and mature as she's been there. And she actually is right now in Dar es Salaam, going through school and training, learning a trade, and also learning English in an intensified program. She's going to be coming back to Talawanda and working with us at Hope. She's one of those that we're hoping will be able to be there for a translator when we're there. And we're excited to have her there. And right behind Jackie is the old man, Mateo. Mateo's there at Talawanda. One of the leading men of the congregation is Simon. Simon is Mateo's son. And so they were one of the first families to convert to Christ. And that whole family has been such a great help to the church. And so Mateo's going to be staying there at Talawanda, working with that congregation. It is our prayer that he will be able to help us as that congregation continues to grow, to one day have elders to oversee not only that church, but also hopefully the school of preaching that's there. And then there beside Mateo is Nice. Nice is Messiah. His mother was one of our first converts, and so Nice now is a Christian. He's gone through the school. He's going out to a Maasai village a little ways away from us to plant a congregation. And his mom, who's been worshiping there at Talawanda, she decided she wants to go where her son's preaching for some reason. But she's going to go out there with him, and we're excited about that. And of these 7 men, 6 of them are going to be staying there in Chilinzi district, either working with us at the school or planting congregations in some of the surrounding villages. And we're very excited to have them there. There's one, Henry, is going to be going to Arusha. He's going to be preaching for a congregation that we helped to establish about a year ago. And so really excited about these 8 graduates to see where they'll go and what they'll do as they go out. Now, talking about Hope, I've mentioned that a few times. Of course, this is the women's project that Leah and I personally have started under our elders. And things are going well, relatively. That farm worker that was spit on by the cobra, that was there at Hope. And so because of some of those personnel changes, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on construction. But things are moving along. Our goal and our plan is to open the facility in January. And I think we're on track to do that. We're kind of in those final stages right now of getting things ready. And so we've got Helen and Jackie and Lady Pascazia who are going to be there working with us. And we've got 2 couples, actually, husband and wife, 2 of those couples that are there working with us at Hope, and they're doing amazingly. They've got the farm going so that when those girls come, there's already food and readiness for them. They're working on the facilities. And of those 4 souls, none of them are Christians yet, but they see the love and the concern that is there. They see how different things are, and they are asking questions, and there are ongoing Bible studies with all 4 of those. And so prayerfully, they will be in Christ soon. And so we're going to be starting there in January. We're starting small because we're dealing with people's lives. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew. So we're going to limit it to 5 girls coming in. And again, we're bringing in some of these young at-risk women who don't have any place to go or anything to do, and a lot of them end up making very poor decisions trying to survive. And so we're actually interviewing some of those prospective students right now. There's one lady, the interview that I watched recently, she's Muslim. She has 3 children. She has a 4th child that passed away, after which time her husband abandoned her and the other 3 kids. And so she's there. She's heard about us. She's known about the Christians there at Talawanda, and she's known about the plan to get Hope going. And so she says, I'm ready to come. I want to learn more about what you guys are doing. I want to learn the Bible. And I want to learn what you can teach me to help take care of my kids. And so really excited about the opportunity to help in that way. And again, the hope, the hope with Hope is that this work also will grow to be self-supporting. So we're working with the staff there, working out that plan and that budget to keep it tight, keep it lean, and move it very quickly to be self-supporting so that when there are elders there at Talawanda, that thing will be able to continue to go with or without us. And again, how important it is to set that example And that example of not being a burden, but being a help because we care and we're willing to put in the hard work. And let me tell you, this is something that is radically different from so much of what is seen. One of our graduates, Aston, is working in the Trading Center of Lugoba. He's working on planning a congregation there. And he got us an invitation to preach for a Pentecostal church. So here we are in a Pentecostal church. And the way that they do things is a little bit different. Everybody's sitting in plastic chairs, but right up at the front there's a nice recliner. That's where the head pastor sits, because he's the head pastor. And every time we get together, we're going to take up a collection. That all goes in his pocket, because he's the head pastor. And if we're going somewhere and there's a nice seat up front of the vehicle, that's where he sits, because he's the head pastor. Everybody else can sit in the back of the truck. And so to go in and say, we're not here to be a burden. We're not here to take from you. We're here to give because we care, because we love you. That's something different that they have not seen from the denominations. That's something they haven't seen from the Muslims. And so here at this Pentecostal church, I had the opportunity to preach. I preached about unity and the importance of finding unity as followers of Christ, and that the only way we're going to find that unity is by following the pattern laid out in the New Testament. And, and laying it down too. So that guy there on the front row in the red shirt, he was filled with the Spirit. And by that I mean he's drunk as a skunk. But he was there. And so I got to talking about repentance. And I said, that means that you're going to quit drinking. And he said, amen. And I said, that also means that we're going to follow the pattern of worship. So we're not going to be beating on the drums and clapping the hands while we're singing. We're going to sing as a congregation the way the Lord designed. And so the first song after the sermon, there was none of that. They sang a cappella. Now the next song, a woman led it, and they did all the clapping and stuff. So there's still some teaching. But they said, thank you for the teaching. When can Aston come back and continue? And so we're excited about those opportunities. And the things that we see over there, brothers and sisters, I think more and more we're going to see here. And I'm not talking about Greg's foot. He stuck that out there right as I took this picture. But here's this family, this Maasai family, I spent the better part of a morning with. They invited us to come. 6 souls. 2 of them are Roman Catholic. 2 of them are Anglican. And 2 of them are Muslim. If I was going to pick 3 religions that have a bloodthirst for one another, I think I'd pick those 3. But they said it really doesn't matter. Catholic and Anglican, they're exactly the same. And we have the Bible in our Swahili, and the Quran's in Arabic. We can't understand it, but it just says the same thing, just in Arabic. It doesn't matter. And so to say, yes, it does. It does matter that God gave us a pattern in the New Testament. We've got to follow that pattern. And if 2 people worship on different days, the Muslims worship on Friday and the Christians worship on Sunday, they can't both be right. You know, if some people use the drums and some people don't, they can't both be right. And we've got to follow the pattern. This was a totally new concept to them. And I think, brothers and sisters, that's true more and more. A couple weeks ago, there was that Mormon church that got shot up. And the response to that was, Christianity is under attack. Well, hold on, they're not Christians, they're Mormons. There's a difference. But 2 things. Number 1, I don't think the shooter knows that. Number 2, the world doesn't know that. They just see somebody who says the name of Christ. It's all the same, it doesn't matter. We have work to do in teaching those souls around us. And that work begins with the example that we set, showing our love and our care. So we talk about where we're going and the things that we have planned. I'm going to continue working in these places that we are and exploring other opportunities as they come up. Also working to help train other missionaries as we have the opportunity to get more workers in the field. Because, by the way, guys, that is one of our big needs, is finding quality brethren that we can labor with over there. Because, again, if there's the opportunity to just live off of the American dollar ad nauseum, there's a lot of brethren who would be happy to do that rather than work night and day to provide for themselves and help their villages. And so there is the need for those quality brethren that we can work with and for support to be able to do the things that we're doing. And so when we talk about the things that we need, brothers and sisters, we need you. We need your encouragement. And I have to tell you, whenever I have a conversation with you, y'all are encouraging. Thank you. We need your prayers. Your prayers for safety. We did make it here safely tonight. I'm very thankful about that. The prayers for the funds, the opportunities, the laborers, for the things that we are doing. And one important note here, by the way, the last time I was here, I talked about the eldership at Natalia that was overseeing my work. We have 2 elders. I talked about Charlie Brown, whose health was not very well, and I asked for prayers for him. Charlie Brown is doing much better. I wouldn't say that he's well, but he's better. Matter of fact, this week I talked to him. He was at the cattle auction. For the first time in months, he was at the auction. So excited about that. But he also lost his wife this last month. And so the eldership there at Natalia is dissolving. And so talking to Jim, the other elder, he said, you can't just have these funds, overseen by your buddy who's a preacher. You need to find an eldership. And so we're there at War Street, the Granbury Street congregation in Cleburne. We have 5 good shepherds there, and they are overseeing those funds. And any funds that have gone to Natalia, they're there, they're safe. We're in the process of getting things transferred over. Banks are involved, so it's a process, but we're getting that done. And we're very thankful for that. And so going forward, those funds will be going to Granbury Street. But I would like to take a moment right here and ask that you would please continue to pray for Charlie Brown. Continue to pray for the Natalia congregations. They're going through this difficult transition in this time. Good congregation, good brethren down there. So thankful for them. And they certainly need your prayers. And again, as we think about the work that we're doing, as we think about being an example to those that we're trying to reach, that we're not walking out of step with the gospel, but because of our love, because of our care, we're working night and day. How are you doing? What kind of an example are you setting? Are you walking out of step with the gospel? If so, well, why not fix that? Maybe there's just something going on in your life, in your community, that you're aware of, that you want prayers for. Let the family pray with you and for you. If there's something that the church here can do, that we can do, we want to do it. So if you are subject in any way to the Lord's invitation, right now is the time. Won't you let that be known? While together we stand while we sing.
There's a strange